Welcome in to the Brave and the Attempt podcast. Today we have Special Olympic Fremont coach Cory Piercy. Cory, how's it going?
It's going really good, Wyatt. Going really good. Snowing out there now, though. I was
Oh yeah,
sunbathing yesterday, and now it's snowing. Welcome to Nebraska.
I know. Like it's like those shirts, like Nebraska. It's not for everybody, but we love it.
Yeah,
So, you
it's not
know.
for everybody.
So, quick background story. Cory was my Special Olympic coach for 15 years and
Yeah,
had some great times and memories with Cory.
yeah.
Times of I remember my first practice. I'm just a 13-year-old seventh grader, and it was a shell shock. Like in seventh grade, you play with kids that are your same age, and I'm playing with adults that it's like my parents let me do this. Like I remember the first jersey he gave me was like this practice
First
jersey.
jersey, it was oh yeah, it was like it was about four sizes too big, and that was a small, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and
We had to
then
go. We had to go back to Lose or Nebraska Sports and get some new uniforms.
oh yeah, and yeah, and you could tell the jersey had been used quite a bit, and
Yep,
the best thing was it was alternate, so black and gold. But
yep. We can
uh,
flip it around.
yeah, and then we just get better jerseys as we go along. But before we get into all that, why don't you tell us about yourself, Cory, and where you grew up and your involvement in sports?
Yeah, so I was raised actually. I started my athletic career as a kindergartner playing soccer in Carter Lake, Iowa. My dad owned a marina right across from the airport down there, and he was one of my first coaches. So I always had a dad as my mom or my dad was a coach, and I started playing soccer was the first thing I played, and then in Carter Lake, it was soccer and baseball. It's kind of all we played all the way up through sixth grade, and then I got into wrestling a little bit and played football, and then I love sports, and I was a competitive water skier too at the time as a little rugrat. Did a lot of water skiing, but then we moved out to Prague in 1980, and so when I asked people about do they play soccer out here, they actually thought I meant kickball because nobody played soccer out in the country. So Prague was a really small rural town, but it's a great town, and that's where I call home. As far as like that's where I say where I'm from. I'm from Prague because that's where I junior high and high school years, very formidable years. Playing baseball, played football, did track, and anything that they would offer, any sport that they would offer, I would do it just because I love sports. I'm a lot like you, and try another sport. It's like, hey, let's try this. Let's just try it. Um, the one thing about my growing up playing soccer though is it'll come into my athletic career later is when I moved out to Prague, they didn't play soccer, so I learned how to kick a football, and so that's another story. But yeah, I just always enjoyed competition, no matter what it was. I was never the biggest dog in the fight, but I had a lot of fight in my. I was the dog that had a lot of fight in him,
Mm-hmm.
and so just always like to be competitive, and my dad taught me to be competitive at an early age, and so yeah, I was just we play if you play cards, we play Monopoly. I was just always competitive, just want to win.
Awesome. Yeah, so you went on, you played sports in high school. So what are all the sports you played in high school again?
So yeah, so in high school, I played every sport they offered. We all
Okay.
we had was football, and we played six-man football, so it was
Mm.
even different because that's how small of a school we were. Played six-man football, and then basketball, and then track, and did track. So those are my high school sports, and then during the summertime, while we were farmers, I still played Legion baseball up through my sophomore year, I believe it was.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, and so you do high school sports, and then you got
yep.
a football scholarship to Midland University, right?
Yeah. So actually, I got an academic scholarship. I got an academic scholarship, and then basically walked onto the football team and said, "Hey, I'm a kicker," and they kind of knew about me because I had done some things. I made all state in six man, which I mean it's not that hard. There was only like 8 teams, but I
Mm.
was yeah I was a good kicker and a pretty good quarterback, and So I was pretty athletic. And I actually, when I went to Midland, I actually walked on with the basketball team first because I just wanted to stay active. And I had actually I came home from basic training. I had like 2 weeks, and then I reported to college. And I had visited with Rich McGill and told him I wanted to play basketball and football, and he was fine with it. Um, but my time with the football team was great, and yeah, I became the scout team quarterback for Midland. I was a scout team All American. There's
Nice.
a lot of us out there. um, but I played through, so I played football and basketball all the way through my junior year. And then my junior year of football, um, I broke my ankle in a 7-on-7 drill because I was playing defense for the scout team or playing offense for the scout team. And I ended up breaking my ankle before the last uh, home football game, which was against our rivals, Dana College, back in the day. And so then I ended up not playing basketball that year. And then when I came back, I just played football my senior year. And then my senior year, we were about halfway through the season, not quite halfway through the season, and I was in the Army Reserves at the time. And my brother Gary Piercy and we both got called up. We got called up in support of Operation Desert Storm, and so halfway through my football season, my whole life changed, and like I went overseas and served my country there, and then but came back and then got to finish my career at Midland. Although when I got back, I didn't feel like playing football again. So actually, my brother and we actually started a club soccer program at Midland. So this would have been in '92, and so now it's a great sport. It's a letter sport. But back in the day, we had to go raise funds for uniforms, and
Wow.
we played indoor soccer. We played anything we could. But at Midland, there's a lot of international students, and soccer was kind of that's an international game. And so yeah, we figured, hey, well, let's do some of that. So we started a club. We started a soccer club at Midland. I call it my second senior year when I came back from Desert Storm.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know like you were that into soccer. I knew your one of your sons played soccer. I was like, oh, that's cool. He's trying a new sport, but now it's like, okay, now it all makes sense.
Yeah, I had some background. I played a lot of soccer when I was younger. Because I wasn't a big guy, but I was pretty fast, and so that's a sport that relates really well. And you don't need to be that big if you're fast and
Mhm.
fast on your feet, good with your feet, and not afraid of contact. So yeah,
Right. Awesome. So, and also thank you for your service. Like,
yeah, you
good.
bet, you bet. No,
So, was
I think I
that
was
kind of
born to serve.
was that kind of hard to like go to college, go serve, and then have to come back and start college, or how was
Yeah,
that?
yeah. My study habits, and I wouldn't say I was a great student, but I was an okay student in college because I was super busy. Not only I was in the reserves at the same time I was in sports, and I was going to college, and I was working part time too. So yeah, I just stayed really busy. But yeah, when I came back, your priorities change when you go to war. And you come
Yeah.
home, and there's a lot of things that are more important now. Some things are much less important. So family was important, and just spending time with friends and things like that. So I I think I still I got my A's and B's my senior year. So
Yeah. Me too, man. So, yeah, so you go through, you graduate college, you go throughout your life, and how'd you get involved with? I've heard you tell the story, but how'd you
yeah,
get involved with helping with Special Olympics or just
yeah.
helping with people with disabilities in general?
Yeah. So I call it, this is just this is my God story here. So basically, my wife and we got married in '99, and my wife, Chris, and we had, I had a job that didn't pay great. So it was like, we were trying to find other ways to raise some money, for just us being a new couple and stuff. And, we were doing what's called respite, because my wife worked for Encore. Well, it was Encore back then. And so we did respite, and where we would take in somebody that had some disabilities, and we might take them in for a night, or we might take them for a weekend, or we might take them for 2 weeks. It just depended on what they needed.
Mhm.
And so we became a respite provider as kind of a way to earn some side income. And then our our first ever respite person, his name was Kyle, and he's still on the team today, Kyle Pascal. So his mom and dad were going to be out of town for 2 weeks. And so Kyle came and stayed with us. And at this time, I had never done anything with somebody that had disability. So I'd never done anything with Special Olympics. We had the church growing that I grew up with in Wahoo. We had some disabled people that were at church, and I was good friends with them, but never like on an athletic, never on the athletic side before, just more on the personal side. And then so Kyle stayed with us, and so he was staying with us for 2 weeks, and my wife did most of all of the work. I kind of did the fun stuff, I'd play with Kyle, we'd talk and stuff, and but she would make sure, he took his meds when he was supposed to, and he made sure he ate what he was supposed to, and all, did his program.
Mhm.
Well, and part of his program was he went bowling, and then he had basketball practice, and he was with us for 2 weeks. So the first time that he needed to go to basketball practice that day, my wife got called in because as a respite, as she worked for Encore, and she was a home based support supervisor. So one of the homes that she was supervising, the person that was supposed to be staying there couldn't make it. So she said, well, I gotta go. Can you take Kyle to practice? I go, oh, sure, I can take Kyle to practice. That's no problem. I'll just take him, I'll drop him off, and then I'll just pick him up when he's done. And so on the way to practice, so I was taking Kyle to practice, and this was down at the old junior high, which was downtown, right there on Broad Street there, where the gerbil walk is or whatever. So
Mhm.
there was a practice in that gym in that the old junior high. And so as I was driving and talking to Kyle, just something was coming over me, like um, I didn't know what was going on. But when I pulled into the driveway, or pulled into the parking lot, and I was going to just drop Kyle off and say, what time do I need to pick you up? But something made me just say, hey, Cory, just park the car and go in and make sure Kyle gets in there. So, and I mean, the door was only 10 feet from where I dropped him off, but something inside of me just said, you need to go in there. And so, so I did. So I walked in with Kyle, and I just you walk into the gym, and I just saw what was going on. And so two of the first coaches I ever met was Barb and Bob Shannon. And so they were trying to run this basketball practice. And then, I mean, there's kids running all over the place, and, it was a little crazy and hectic. And um, I saw what was happening, and God just said, you're needed here. And so I said, Kyle, you go ahead and practice, and then I went and I sat on the stage, and I just sat there for the whole practice. And then after that practice, I walked up to Barb and Bob, and I said, my name's Cory Piercy, and I think I'm supposed to be here for a reason. I said, do you need any help? And they said, oh, Lord, yes. And, and then so then they went on, like, needed help with, getting coaching and all this stuff. And so, yeah, I grew up with sports. And so that's how I started, just as a volunteer. And from that, so that would have been 1999. So this is year 25 for me in
Wow.
Special Olympics. So I've been involved ever since then. Um, and so that's how I got my start. And then, yeah, just Barb and Bob showed me a lot, and then Ed Fry, who was the HOD at the time, the head of delegation, and they welcomed me with open arms, and really just gave me a lot of leeway on what, if what we wanted to do, because I'd run practices before for youth before, but I'd never done it
Right.
for Special Olympics. So the whole Special Olympics world was all new to me, but it was, it's been a great partnership, um, just in my life, and it's kept me grounded, and so that's why I've always really appreciated, and that's why I try to get people involved as much as I can, people that I know that can help the Special Olympics.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, if your wife didn't have to go to work, who knows? Like,
Yeah,
you never would have
yeah. If
approached.
she wouldn't have gone, and that's why I say it was a God thing, because God really directs our paths, and so that all happened for a reason. And so, and I'm glad it did. So
Yeah.
glad it did.
What did your wife say when you came home and you're like, I'm a coach now?
Yeah. So she was like, "Are you sure?" And I go, "Yeah, I am sure." I was like, "I've never been more sure about something in my life." And so I was like, and I don't even know what I'm doing yet, because it's like I just they gave me the paperwork, all the volunteer paperwork and stuff.
Right.
So I filled it out that night, and I dropped it off the next day at Barb's house, and I said, "Just let me know." I was like, "Let me know when the next practice is." And so at that
Yeah.
time, it was just they were just doing basketball, and I think um, at that time, and I think Diane Christensen was still the coach, and she's still our swimming coach, and I think swimming was going on at the same time, but I didn't even know that. Everything was just brand new to me.
Mhm. Yeah. So trying to talk about how you coach, because what I really enjoyed about you was like, yeah, you're really nice to all the athletes and everything, but you pushed us. Like,
Yep.
it's not like you're just like Bobby Knight over here just screaming at us. But you were stern. Like sometimes I feel like people are too nice to us. And it's just like, look, I want to be coached. If I'm
Yep.
doing something wrong, tell me. So like when you started coaching, how did because let's face it, it's different than coaching probably like, a kids team that people don't have disabilities, physical
Yeah.
or intellectual. So how'd you go
Yeah.
about
So the way I looked at it was, when I first came into it, I I was an outside observer, seeing how things were just done and I'm talking in general in Special Olympics, where when I would tell somebody that I I volunteer at Special Olympics, oh, that's so nice that you help these kids that can't do anything. And it was like, no, these kids can do so much more. And then, you know, I remember having discussions with coaches and I had um somewhat heated discussions, and like, here's what I want to do with these kids. And there was definite pushback at first, and they just can't do it. And I was like, I disagree. And so what I had to do is just find different ways to teach fundamentals. Just is there a different way? Is there a way I can explain it? Is there a drill we can do, type of thing? But I always thought if somebody just said, "Oh, well, he's just special needs. That's just the way he is," I thought they were doing him a disservice. And so my goal was to not only fill them with confidence and that they could do things that were harder than anybody ever expected that they could do, but there was something that now I wanted them to aim higher, for their goals and start setting goals. But really, I think you were the first athlete that I had that really set some lofty goals. Most of the athletes that I dealt with, they hadn't hardly been out of Fremont, you know,
hmm
and let alone the state of Nebraska. And then, 11 years later, it's 2010, and I'm coaching in the national games, and we have the state flag football team. I'd only been in Special Olympics for 11 years, but we'd gone from very basic basketball to flag football. It was quite the learning experience for me, going through the phases of learning. And so I think my my goal was always to make practice fun.
hmm
I never preached to them about winning.
hmm
I always preached to them about doing their best. Like, did you do your best? Did you do your best? That's all we can do. You can't do any better than your best. So, but they also know that I always expect their best. So when
Right.
they do something really good, I was like, that's what you need to do every time.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy that's 4 years out of high school and still hanging around his hometown with his letter jacket on. Go, remember when I was in high school and I ran that touchdown in? I want these athletes to continue to grow and set goals, and every phase of their life.
Yeah. And back to that football thing, I remember like 2010, I was in eighth grade, and that's when it started. Like I didn't get to play that year, but I played the next year. But I remember like, yeah, we had just started flag football too.
Yep.
So that had to be a whole experience for you because
Oh yeah.
going the first year you coach it in the fall, and then the following summer you go to nationals right away. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah. So I know, when you gave me a list of questions as far as kind of like, here's some things to consider, one of your questions was, um, uh, what are some of the moments when you really had, when athletes showed what they're capable of overcoming adversity in sports and life? So, you know, so we backtracked to 2008, and our first time we ever played flag football. So we're just trying to learn how to catch,
Mhm.
throw and catch, because those are, eye hand coordination is something with, when people with disabilities, it's a struggle.
It's rough.
It's we yeah, and the eye hand coordination is something that has to be worked on even more and more for them, because it doesn't come as easy as it does, for somebody like me, which now I'm getting older, my eye hand coordination is getting worse. But so 2008 we have this, and then 2009 rolls around. It's like, all right, this is gonna be our second year of football, and then they said, hey, by the way, we're looking for somebody that wants to coach our national team. It's like, whoa, I just got into this. I didn't even know it was a national sport. I just thought we were doing something cool in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And so I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Um, so we combine a team from Fremont and West Point, which we played together. Our two delegations played together, and
Mhm.
so we took a team down to Lincoln, and in 2010, it was probably the hottest summer ever, and so we had never played anybody outside of the state of Nebraska, so I didn't know what to expect. When we first get there, all we had ever taught was just man-to-man defense, kind of like, just cover your guy. And we realized that when I started talking to the teams that were there, like, we're just two small town teams that combined. No, not an all-star team. Not We didn't like pick and choose or anything. And like, as I'm talking to all these coaches from uh, Mississippi and from Missouri and from um, Texas and from, where were the other ones from? Arkansas. It's like, yeah, we only get to practice like once a month because these kids come from all over the state. It's like, why do they come from all over the state? It's like, well, this is our all-star team. I'm like, my eyes got big and I'm like, uh-oh. So our first game, so the way they did it back then is you played a bunch of like half games. So you played teams to like get seeding for like what bracket you would be in. And so we spent our first day of this kind of like, not, it wasn't even pool play yet, because they were just trying to, because it was a new sport. This was the first time it was in the national games. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, we played three teams, and I mean, we weren't even close to staying with them playing man to man.
Mhm.
So my coaches at the time were Dylan Sengraff and Leonard Hall. We kind of had a coaches meeting. We had a coaches meeting while the guys were eating. It's like, dude, we have to come up with something. It's like, we need to develop a zone defense, so we don't have to just try to run with these guys. We cover zones instead of man to man stuff. And so we designed something on a whiteboard. The guys came back from lunch or from dinner, and we had been practicing playing all day. And I mean, we
Mhm.
just got drilled like every game. We were just getting drilled. And uh, we spent that evening for about 4 hours from 6 to 10. We walked through on a whiteboard with our athletes. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's how everything's gonna change. It's like, forget everything you've learned. Here's what we're gonna do. And so we walked through the basics of a zone defense, talk to them about where your territory is, what you have to do, where the ball is. And so I got a lot of 10,000-yard stares where they're like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
And so the next morning, instead of sleeping in till 8 o'clock, we got our team up at 6 o'clock because the sun was just coming up. We went across the street to a park, and we did, basically what we did was kind of like moving pawns on a field. It's like, all right, when the ball's here. So we taught them all about this, and so we had that day off, but we spent that whole day practicing this new stuff, and then also changing our offense a little bit. And so then the next day came, uh, and we finally had our first pool play game. And I mean, literally, in those fast games where we only played for like 8 minutes, we were
Mhm.
getting beat like 32 to nothing, 32 to
Dang.
6.
Wow.
And so our first game, we were putting it together. And so they didn't really start getting, they scored on us the first couple times, but then they started, next thing we know, we get an interception because we were right in the where we were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then they start seeing how it works. And then when it came time to, so we had to play 4 games and then you're seeded for a tournament.
Mhm.
So so there was an A group, a B group, and a C group. We moved up from the C group to the B group. So we were like the 4th seed in the B group. And so it's a 4-team bracket.
Mhm.
And so the first team we played was a team that beat us like 42-0 in 8 minutes.
Mhm.
And we ended up beating that team like 12-10, or no, it was 14-12 or something like that, because we got the 2-point conversions. And
Nice.
then for the state championship, so for the championship game of that one, we had to play Arkansas, who skunked us the last time we played them. And it was under the lights. It was Friday night. It was like if there was ever a time that there could have been some movie cameras rolling. I mean, it was Nebraska football on a Friday night. It was just great.
Nice.
Great atmosphere. And it was a back and forth game. It was one of those Friday night games. And the guys, the temperature for those 3 days that we played football, it was over 105 degrees. And we were
Oh.
playing on AstroTurf. And so
Oh.
it was like 115 on that AstroTurf. It was so hot. So it was like anytime we could get into shade or get water, and so it had just been a long weekend.
Mhm.
We ate lunch and I said, all right, everybody back to your rooms. I just want you to rest and relax, because our game wasn't until like 7 o'clock. It was like 7 o'clock at night.
Okay.
So we had them rest that whole evening, and then got them ready about 2 hours before the game, got them up and started moving them. And man, they just performed like that. And that's where I knew I was hooked. I mean, I knew I love Special Olympics, but what we accomplished in those 4 days, um, if you ever talked to anybody that was there, that was at the 2010 games and saw that game, everybody was talking about us afterwards, about how we had turned everything around just in one day. And
Right.
so it's one of my greatest memories of Special Olympics. And that's where I go to when somebody tells me that an athlete can't do something because they're special needs. It's like, you just got to find a different way to teach them.
Yeah, and props to you and Dylan and Len, because a lot, let's face it, there's some coaches maybe oh, we have disabilities, we can't teach them for 4 hours this zone defense. Maybe if we taught a high school team or a group of another flag football team with
Yeah.
nobody with intellectual or physical disabilities, but no, you guys gave us a chance, and yeah, will it take longer? Probably, but
Yep. It
it
just
will
takes
work.
longer.
It will work. You
Yep.
just have to put in the time. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it's high school, college, coaching Special Olympics. The great coaches, they put in the time with their players,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's what you guys did. And that's what I always appreciate about you guys, the Fremont team.
Yeah.
It's I remember you guys teaching us 1-3-1 defense, and my brother
In
was a
basketball.
coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in basketball, and my brother was a coach, and it was a very frustrating practice.
Yeah.
But it
Where am I
worked.
supposed to be?
Yeah, it's what is happening? And Wes and our friend Kenny, who was Weston's assistant, trying
Yep.
to teach us. And it's not unified, it's traditional. So there's no
Yeah.
unified players
You don't
out there
have a
helping you.
partner out there
Yeah, it's it's
guiding
up to
them.
you. And
Yep.
I'm only I don't know, it's I think sophomore year of high school. So I don't really know basketball like I know it now. And it's just
Yeah.
Wes, why are we doing this? But it worked, and you just had to put in the time. And yeah, your player, just like any football
Yeah.
team, basketball team, your player's
Yep.
gonna get mad at you, but it works.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's cool. I always appreciated that about you taking the extra time
Yep.
to
And I
make
think,
us
and
better.
I don't coach them any different than I coach my sons. When I coached my son through 6th grade, and I would be hard with them, but I'd be fair. I mean,
Right.
I'm still going to be fair, and I'm going to mess up sometimes. I might lose my temper, and I'll apologize.
Mhm.
But they know I always have. I think for the most part, my athletes always know I have their best interests at heart. And if I tell you you can do something, you can do it.
Right.
You just gotta dig down deep though. It's not gonna be handed to you.
Yeah. So so from the time you started Special Olympics to now, the
Mm.
opportunities to get athletes to be more healthy, healthy athletes at the
Yeah.
state games, and just talk about what you've seen from the 90s when you started to now, the health that athletes get on
Yeah.
the playing field.
Yeah. What I've really noticed, and it's kudos to our Special Olympics Nebraska staff. What I've really noticed is the improvements in the coaches training, and the coaches training that they offer. And you have to, as a coach, you have to want to learn how to do some of this stuff. But the opportunities for that, when they got us into the Nebraska Coaches Association,
Yeah.
and we get to attend those clinics in July. Um, we didn't have that when I first got in. We didn't have that when I first got in. So, I'm just like learning from scratch. They really taught a lot of things about the sports that we were doing. And then when they first offered it, it was just we were going in and just like we were a high school coach for a regular school or a regular team. What I've really liked about what Special Olympics Nebraska has done is they have these breakout sessions that are specifically for Special Olympics. So it really does help offer those different here's what I learned type of things. So coaches can learn from each other. Um, their coaches fraternity can so how do you do this at practice? How do you teach this at practice? And so that's one thing that we never had to do, or we never had when I first started, to where now it's it's there if you want it.
Right.
Another thing is just the level of competition and the competition um, that they allow us to do. You're one of the shining examples of being able to um, compete at the national level annually at a tennis tournament. For us to be able to compete in all these different sports now at national games, and then at world games too, having athletes that can do that was unheard of when I first came in, but it's because of the training that's offered to us, the all of the when I say the chances that we get to compete at different levels, NIT tournaments, things like that. We never knew about them before,
Yeah.
and now they're there. And so our staff, Sony staff, is doing a great job of, hey, here's something that's out there. Here's something that's out there. And so having that, the healthy athletes and healthy eyes, all that stuff is it. I mean, it was really good back then, but now it seems like it's even so much more advanced. We have physiotherapies, physical therapy people, uh, the medical staff that's offered at these competitions are just, I mean, they're hands down way better than when we first got into it, and it gets better every year. And so
Yeah.
it takes a lot of organization, and I know our Sony staff has grown. Over the years, Sony staff is a lot bigger than when I first came in. I only knew like 3 people in the
Mm,
staff, 4 people, plus your regional directors and stuff like that. So
right.
now we have a staff where um, they can get things done. They still run really thin, but but the opportunities that are afforded us are best in the nation.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, now being employed for Sony, it's cool to
Yeah.
see
Yep.
how it all comes together. And, like I was fortunate to have good parents. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she could take me to my doctor's appointments. But some athletes have to work, or maybe they can't get a ride. So it's nice to have these things at the special events because, they may not be able to get to the doctor, and then they can
Yep.
help them find
Yeah.
something out. And then it helps coaches for you, oh, my players are ready to go, they're healthy. My
Yep.
so and so player couldn't catch the ball, but now he has glasses and he can catch the ball now.
He can actually see the ball.
Yeah, so it doesn't hit him in the face all the time.
Yeah. And
You know,
they're athletic glasses. They're not just
yes.
they give them the sports goggles. So yeah.
Yeah, I got those in Orlando, Florida at when I went for basketball for nationals, and that was
Yep.
cool. And I mean, it's all it's free stuff, so it's just really nice, and it's cool to see people like you said. I get to travel for tennis tournaments, but like Fremont has some athletes if they had an elite basketball or football tournament, like you could definitely send like guys from Omaha, Lincoln, Fremont to compete in it.
Yeah.
And it's just cool to see because before I felt like people thought we were just like, oh, we practice on Sundays, we play at one, maybe two tournaments a year, and that's it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool to see like leagues and stuff. And um, who in your life through either before Special Olympics or during has really helped you stay focused on your goals in and outside of Special Olympics and
Mhm.
has really been there for you through tough times on the
Yeah.
field and off.
Like I say, when I first got in, Bob and Barb Shannon were great, as far as like giving me information as far as how to get started in this, and then the Fries, Ed and Nancy, they really helped. They helped get me started, and then as I started to get more involved, I met Diane, and she's an amazing coach, and so that's where I really started to see where you know teaching and coaching athletes at the highest level that's available and it's there and we should do it when we can. um, that's where I really got my start, and then also some of the other coaches that like through Special Olympics that I've known and had great conversations with and appreciate how they've done with their teams. So Barb Rolfs from West Point,
Mhm.
she and I worked a lot together, because our delegations were somewhat smaller, but this way, West Point would come in to do some events with us, and then some of our athletes would go do events with them. Because I think they actually had like roller skating back in the day. They had
Oh
roller
yeah.
skating, so some of our athletes roller skated with West Point team, and then the West Point team came down and swam with us, things like that. So Barb and I, we had talked a lot about coaching and yeah, increasing the um, just the technical aspect of coaching. So I really appreciated that. And then from Minden, Lenny Ginder, he has been he's like I always say he's a brother. He's my brother from another mother. But yeah, he and I we walk around with bald heads and talk about, hey, how do you shave your head and all that stuff. But just we talked about a lot of things, Special Olympics wise, and then like what we're doing with our athletes and how we can get better, and they were really free about sharing information, and I always had just a really good relationship. So those coaches those are the coaches that I kind of grew up with and really bent their ear, and they bent mine, and we talked a lot about just things that helped me become a better coach. But then when I think about staff, through Sony, when I first came in, I didn't know anybody, and like I say, it was a smaller staff. But I think when I first really started getting involved, Rick Childry, he was in where Nate's at now. He was kind of in that spot, but he didn't have as many assistants as Nate has now. But I know he was highly involved in the 2010 national games, and so I've always appreciated. He and I we're still friends on Facebook, and we still talk about things and remember some fond memories of 2010 and then 2014, and just had a good times with him. But then just really the staff today nowadays. Dave and Nate. I've had so many conversations with Dave and Nate, just about everything, and I feel their struggles. I feel their pains. Sometimes I am one of their struggles, and sometimes I am one of their pains. But they truly are. They truly care about our athletes. They want the best for them. They do so much, and I really appreciate what they've done. And then really Carolyn Chamberlain. So she's the one that talked. She talked me into um, applying to be on the board of directors
Oh
a few
yeah.
years ago, and so I was on the board of directors too. And that's really like my involvement really stepped up then, and
Right.
so now it's been at a high level where I'm trying to help coaches and trying to help programs. And I know, we kind of know what our struggles are, talking about, how do we pass down to the next generation type of thing. Because, you know, if you look at a lot of our coaching staffs from these delegations, we're getting older. And so
Right.
um, we need to teach the younger generation, and show the younger generation kind of like I wish somebody would have showed me this, 30 years ago.
Mhm.
But I'm here now, so I'm trying to raise awareness. Our project Unified Schools. Sony's done a great job with that, and you know, there's been so many people. I mean, and I know I'm probably leaving off some, but just like knowing that I have somebody that helped me when he was in high school is now working for,
Yeah.
Dylan Sincraft working for you guys. He and I had a lot of talks, because I was trying to learn how do I tell somebody about Special Olympics, or how do I show them how to coach somebody. And then, Dylan's been he was one of my greatest coaches. And then Leonard Len Hall, he's been with me ever since, I can remember, since 2008, I think, is when we started football. I think that's when Len got
Yeah.
involved with me. And he's helped coach, and he's helped run practices, and he's done. So these are people that you know, I could never do what, I just remember when I first got in and I became the head of delegation. And I think there was maybe about, you know, 30 or 40 athletes that were fairly active. And I think pre-COVID, we'd almost doubled. We were almost up to 80, 82 athletes. And we had almost 50, we had over 50 involved just in basketball.
Yeah.
And you remember how full the gyms were.
Yeah, it was huge. Like I showed up and it's just like, dang, like
Yeah.
how many
And
teams we're
it'd
gonna
be
have.
packed. And it'd be packed for 2.5 hours. But there are so many volunteers that have helped me, off and on throughout the years. But Dylan stood by me the whole time, and Len has stood by me the whole time. So I really appreciate those guys, and what they've and then and so and more recently, one of my college buddies, Paul Heineman, he's been with us for, I don't know, he's probably been with us for maybe 6 7 years. But he's really taken on a great leadership role for me, running practices when I can't be there, because my son's getting older and my son's very active in sports. And so I travel all around the country doing other things too. And then with my son's sports, knowing that I have people like Len and Paul, that can run practices for me, it's just, it's an amazing. And so I'm starting to grow, our unified partners
Yeah.
and things like that. And so I really wanted to take off here in Fremont, where I want Fremont to become a unified school. I'm hoping at some point they're going to become a unified school, because there is a ton of support here in the town of Fremont. And so, I think there's just been so many people, of course, when you're 25, when you've been in something this long, you're going to meet a lot of people. But
Yeah.
I mean, I have hardly, I've hardly met a bad person in Special Olympics. And so I've been totally blessed in that
Yeah,
respect.
for sure. Like I think the community has really combined us. We used to hold like that regional tournament for basketball.
Yep.
I think like, people would show out for that. Like it'd be packed.
Yeah, well, because I worked with Midland's football team. Midland always, basically, they adopt us for a
Yeah.
basketball season. We're not hosting basketball this year, but I mean, every year we've hosted that we haven't got it canceled because of COVID. Midland football team, the whole football team has been
Yeah.
great. It's been a great, uh, just uh, just a great asset to have. It's like, when somebody else is putting on a basketball tournament, they're like, "How do you do it?" Dude, I just talked to Midland, and Midland got all that, and then the why's there, and it's like,
Yeah.
this is I'm just trying to steer the ship. I just keep everything moving in the right direction.
Exactly. Like, yeah, we put on a tennis tournament one year and like it goes from like Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas City, like Midwest, we all cheered, each
Uh-huh.
cheer. So when we got it, we got like the most volunteers.
Yeah.
And we're just Fremont and like Kansas City, we're doing it in the middle of the city. Iowa, I think we did somewhere big. Iowa had quite a few volunteers, but like when we did it at the high school in Fremont, like we had a bunch, and the football team was who we went to. Like I'm pretty sure I just asked you, like Cory, where do I go? And because it's like all we needed them to do was pick up tennis balls and be ball people, and it was awesome. Like sometimes like the smaller towns and communities. They really come through when you need them. And
Yeah.
so that's always nice to see. And then people see like, I mean, the unified school thing is great. But I remember like when I was playing for you, the the yak, what they call it now for high school kids that volunteer in Special Olympics in school and out. You know,
Uh-huh.
it was just Wes and I. Hey, come to our
Yep.
games. It's not like YMCA. It's really competitive. Like, and then I would always guilt trip. I'm like, you played like 20 games. You can't come to two of my games. Like, come on, man.
It's only two.
It's
Yeah.
it's like two games. You can come to one if you want. I don't care. So, but yeah, it's really cool that
And I remember you even having Midland basketball players come watch you play when we were down in Lincoln. I remember some of the guys coming down to
yeah,
watch you play.
yeah. And then like Coach Eisner, who was the Midland coach at that time, he came when he was in Fremont. I like funny story. We were playing and I took a charge. It was like right in front of everybody. And Eisner just gets like super mad at his players. He's like, Wyatt weighs like 3 times less than that guy. And he took a charge, and you guys can't take a charge to a college game. My dad told me that, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty funny." But it was cool because, like, I mean, how many of those guys would have came because they're in season?
Yeah.
But like they got
Yep.
to see it, and then I've had a couple friends like they've gotten involved with Special Olympics because of what they seen us do. I think it
Awesome.
was I think it was 2014 when you guys were getting ready to go to nationals again.
Yeah, that
Remember,
was
like,
New Jersey.
yeah, like Wes and I's friends, like you guys scrimmaged against them, didn't you?
Yep.
Yeah, so that was cool. I couldn't do it because I was coming from back surgery, but
Yeah, you had
um
back surgery that year.
yeah, I
Yep.
just would come watch and because I was
Yep.
hoping to get picked for tennis, but obviously
Yeah,
couldn't.
I
But
think we impressed. I think we impressed the high school team because they didn't think we would be that athletic, but we were pretty competitive with them.
yeah, and I think like Wes told me, he was like, yeah, I was telling him like, dude, we can actually play. Like we're gonna, play hard. And then
Yeah.
like some of them were like, oh, and he's like, I told you, so start playing, man. And he's like,
Yep.
we can beat him. Corey won't care if we just blow him out, but we gotta actually play. So,
Yep.
but yeah, I mean, it's just cool to see, like, especially if you get him in high school, like maybe one of them will be like you and I and get really involved, or like Dylan, because
Yep.
Dylan's story was kind of like yours. He just saw a sign, I think, and he just come up to you and tell you he wanted to volunteer.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
He came to me and I can't even remember where was that. I'd met him and yeah, he came to one practice and then he said he wanted to keep doing it. So I was like, all right,
Yeah.
watch out what you ask for.
Yeah.
Be careful what you ask for. And
So
now, yeah, here he is. He's working for Sony.
yeah.
But yeah,
So
we had some great times and great talks. So,
yeah, and you've done a lot for me and my family, and just done a lot. Some of our favorite
yeah.
memories was Corey did get on me, but it was more for I was so intense. Like I would throw an interception, throw my hat down, I was like, like,
Yep.
oh,
Yep.
and then you're like, Wyatt, it's all
Head up.
right.
Head
Just
up, Wyatt. Head up.
relax. Don't like
Next
have a heart
play.
attack.
Next
And
play.
so I just remember like that. And, I always wanted to coach. That pushed me. And, you're close with your high school coaches and stuff. But, with you, I was like really close with you because, you pushed me to want to be the best. And you
Yep.
understood my drive, which
Yep.
not a lot of people got.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I always appreciated that with you and everything you've done for me and my family. So,
You bet. Yep. I've always loved talking to your mom and your dad, and yeah, Wes has been awesome, and that's just really a part. That's why I say that's why we've been so successful is the people that have been involved with us, and so and when I think about the people, and we've had some great businesses over the years that have really supported us and in one way or another, but here recently about 5 years ago, uh, I met with somebody from RTG, and then that partnership with RTG has just been amazing. And
yeah.
I mean, it was an answer to prayer because I was at a point where I would have been in for about 20 years, and I was just burning the wick at both ends,
Hmm.
and I was like, I need to find somebody that will support us, so I don't have to worry about raising funds and raising money and doing this and doing that. Um, and they stepped up and they've just been totally awesome. And then you fast forward 6 years and now here we are last year, RTG sponsored the Alps program.
Yes.
And so we had our athletes hanging out at RTG, learning how to tell their story. And then the people from RTG getting involved with each one of their lives. And now, we just had our uniform handout was this last Sunday. So we had RTG employees come and help hand out the uniforms and take pictures and watch some of the practice. And boy, I tell you, like the sky is the limit with RTG and our relationship. And so I'm trying to grow, I want to grow this. And I want to bring people along that can help keep it going. Like I say, 55 years old, but I mean, I don't see myself slowing down anytime soon, as long as I don't run out of Diet Pepsi or Mountain Dew, or coffee. But surrounding yourself by good people, having great unified partners that understand. That's the one thing I've always loved about my unified partners. They understand why they're there. They're
Right.
there to make our athletes better. Because you've seen it where we go up sometimes against unified teams and their partners just try to take over a game. That's why I always loved having Wes and Kenny on the team. Because Wes and Kenny would shut those guys down like, this is not about you. You will stop that right now. And
Yeah.
so my partners have always been great about understanding that this arena that they're in is for the enjoyment of the game and to make our athletes better. And so it's been a great, that's why, just another reason why we've been totally blessed, being surrounded by really good people.
For sure. Well, thanks again for coming on, Cory, and sharing your story
Yeah.
with us and all you do for athletes like me and their families and just special Olympics in general. So thank you.
It's a labor of love. And yeah, like I say, I get more out of it. I get way more out of it than I ever put into it. So I appreciate you guys just keeping me grounded and keeping my eyes focused on what's really important in life. And like I say, winning is always fun, but
Right.
shoot, I don't, if we're getting beat 40-8 and somebody makes a last second shot, and that's just like, it's like you won the game, even though we got beat by 30 points, but we hit a last second shot. And it's just talking about little victories. And that keeps us going forward. So we want to keep pushing our athletes and then keep letting people know about what our athletes can do. Cause I think that's super important.
Exactly. Well, with people like you helping us, I know we'll get there. So thanks, Cory.
All right. Thanks, Wyatt. We'll talk to you later, buddy.
All right.